Hi everyone, this is my Module 5 discussion video, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. So for Chapter 6, the first question I chose was, discuss how peer-to-peer, supervisor-to-subordinate, and staff-to-customer relationships work in the context of the chapter. Cite the text and use your own experience to enhance your response. So, in my opinion, peer-to-peer relationships are a bit easier to manage than the other two types, simply because with peers, you're on a similar level. Literally, peers are defined as a person of the same age, status, or ability as another specified person. So we can assume that a peer-to-peer relationship would be a bit more informal than a supervisor to subordinate relationship. I think of it as I've made friends with students at school, and we're peers, and it's a little bit of a more informal personal relationship than it would be with, say, my boss. As for the other two types, I feel that there would need to be a bit more reflection on what is said before you say it. For example, you most likely wouldn't discuss in detail any weekend plans or something that happened at home unless there was a more personal relationship between you and your supervisor. Same with a customer. You most likely wouldn't want to discuss personal matters or anything other than what is contextually required of the conversation. Like if you are a cashier at a grocery store and you're ringing up the customer, you kind of keep it at surface level, like being nice, like, oh, how's your day? And, oh, it's been good, the weather's nice, things like that, but you don't get very personal about it, at least not in my opinion. Okay, second question that I chose was, the authors discussed the line between personal and professional, and while they address some important topics, there are several areas that are not addressed. What areas do you believe you should add to the text to enhance this section? Justify your answer using the text. Feel free to draw on this or previous chapters. So, one important topic, especially in today's world that was not addressed, is the influence of social media. So social media tends to blur the lines between personal and professional relationships. For example, I'm not friends with any of my supervisors on Facebook, but some of my coworkers have followed me because we have a more personal relationship. I feel the same way with professors. I would personally find it weird if a former student followed me on social media, if I was a professor, if our relationship was strictly professional. If you knew them as a friend outside of that and then they just happen to be your professor or they're a family friend, that's different. But I feel that if it's just strictly your professor or your supervisor, it's probably not the best idea to include them on your social media profile. It's just, to me, crossing the line. With the growing influence of social media, future students should be aware of the fact that social media can blur the lines between personal and professional very quickly, and sometimes without realizing it. So I feel that this is a really important topic that should be addressed in future editions of this book and other professional communications textbooks. So for Chapter 7, first question I chose was, share a time you worked on an unsuccessful group project. How would information from this chapter have helped your group be successful? Share a time you've worked on a successful group project. How can you use the information from this chapter to frame or explain your group experience? Be sure to cite, but be thorough in your explanation. So, most of the group projects that I have experienced have not been in college. They've usually been in middle or high school, which seems like a long time ago, but it really wasn't. They just seem to be more common in that setting. My most unsuccessful project would have to be, at least what I can remember, I try to block things out like that. The most unsuccessful would probably have to be from my 7th grade science class. We were working on the human body unit, like the biology unit, and we were asked to make a life-size poster of a certain system of the human body, so each person had a different system, like muscular, skeletal, endocrine. Ours was, I think, the central nervous system, if I remember correctly. The requirements of the assignment were to trace someone's body shape on the poster, so one of the group members, fill in the different nerves we had discussed, color code the poster, and label each item. We had a group of 5, so you would think we could handle it between all 5 of us. Guess not. There was little to no communication, and the people I was paired up with were not people I got along with. although that shouldn't have influenced it. I was young and I was shy and I didn't know how to handle being in a group with people that I didn't necessarily get along with. So I kind of ended up sitting off to the side while they did the work because I couldn't seem to speak up for myself. My most successful group project would have had to be in my excuse me, my debate class at SFCC last year. We were asked to build a full debate on a topic of our choice and were assigned 2 assistants. Well, I wouldn't call them assistants, but it's the best word I could come up with, that helped us build our case. We worked so well together that my case got me a 95% on the assignment, and I learned some valuable information from them in the meantime. I think my unsuccessful group experience showed a strong lack of communication and not enough constructive conflict, which is something the textbook said is required for like a successful team or a team meeting. No one was willing to critique anyone, and we ended up messing the entire poster up. As for my successful project, I feel that there was a lot of constructive conflict from my peers about how I could improve my case and my wording behind things, and I think that really helped me solidify a solid grade. And then the second question I chose for Chapter 7 was, explain and critique conflict as it is discussed in the text. What do you believe to be most true and useful, as well as least accurate / relevant or useful? Be specific and use examples and the text in your response. So conflict, as described by the textbook, is the sharing of ideas and discussing options or topics. Lack of conflict is usually caused by groupthink or meetingthink. I'd never heard the term meetingthink before. Groupthink is the tendency of highly cohesive groups to suspend critical thinking and make faulty decisions. Meetingthink is similar, except it is due to more common variables such as false empowerment, overload, or poorly run meetings. Both definitions can be found on page 170 of the textbook. I believe that groupthink is a very real issue that happens a lot in groups or teams. I experienced this mostly in high school, where no one wanted to critique anyone's ideas, even if it meant failing the assignment. I also experienced groupthink when I was in a group with 3 other people that were very close friends. Not of me, they were close friends together. They were all supportive of their own ideas, meaning that my ideas were irrelevant. So everything that they thought was good in their opinion, and that's what we went with. As for the least accurate or useful piece of this section was the fight or flight section. Psychologists have determined that there are other forms of this reaction that don't involve just fight or flight. I think one of them is freeze. Maybe that doesn't apply to this situation, but that was really one of the only things that I kind of disagreed with in that. While doesn't necessarily make the information irrelevant or unusable, it does provide a critique to the information. So I think that's all I have, and thank you guys for listening.